International law expert Dr. Innocent Badasu joins us now via Zoom to give us a little bit more about the goings-on at the International Criminal Court in this new appointment. He's in Accra in Ghana. Thanks very much indeed for joining us. Always good to talk to you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good to talk to you too.
All right, so Karim Khan looks like he comes with good credentials. Can he bring something to the International Criminal Court?
Oh yes, Karim Khan, you can look at his personal records and experience, either as a defense counsel before the ICC or his previous experiences with the ad hoc international criminal tribunal, such as the ICTY, that is for former Yugoslavia, and then ICTR, that is for Rwanda. And so he's not completely new to the international criminal law arena. He's somebody with an admirable international criminal law credentials, and not just the academic qualification, but he's worked across the spectrum. And so he's completely coming to a turf that he has his hands on, that he would be able to use his experiences over the period to maneuver and live up to the political challenges that are before the court at this time.
Yeah. What do you think his biggest strength will be, though?
Say that again, please.
I was just saying, what do you see as his biggest strength?
Now, one of the things we have to look out for in Karim Khan, it's also for the fact that for the first time, we are having a person whose nationality can be traced to the UN Security Council. So he's from the United Kingdom, and the UK obviously represent on the Security Council. Khan would have to navigate the complex relationship between the UN Security Council and the ICC in terms of referral of cases by the ICC, and then also going after some powerful states. So as a British citizen, he comes with that strength to the table, and nobody can deny that. His treatment by the assembly of state parties will be completely different. And so you have a situation where not just his credentials, but his nationality also provides a good opportunity for him to be able to do some of the things that are expected of a fair-minded prosecutor of the ICC.
All right. So just before we carry on talking about what he's going to find on his desk and perhaps some of the challenges he's going to need to overcome, let's just talk a little bit about Fatou Bensouda. In terms of, will she have a legacy to leave behind? We know that she really upset the Americans trying to deal with war crimes in Afghanistan and places. Do you think that she has equipped herself well?
I think so, largely. She was the second prosecutor of the ICC. When you look at the records, she's done incredibly well, and her records are great improvement on Ocampo's legacy, and she has to be credited for her courage to, as it were, even go after the American forces and for crimes they may have committed in the course of their operations in Afghanistan. We have also seen in her last days, not just going after the Americans, but obviously trying to hold Israel accountable for some of the crimes that may have been committed in Palestinian territories or in the disputed territories. And so she comes with an incredible record where, in terms of policy decisions, she has also decided to restructure the office of the prosecutor. And here she has managed to put together a policy document to sort of give a new definition or give clarification to a very nebulous concept known as the interest of justice requirement that must be met to be able to investigate to initiate an investigation or to initiate a prosecution. And that has also largely been clarified. So beyond taking very bold and courageous decisions, she has also managed to bring a certain policy dimension to the office. What she leaves with is very difficult decisions that she's made, which obviously now we are talking about the newly elected prosecutor. He has to live up to expectation. Yes, we are excited about his credentials. We believe strongly his nationality gives him an excellent opportunity or advantage to be able to go beyond the records of Fatou Bensouda. But what is important also is that I think that she's living a big shoes that Karim would have to wear. And it's important to acknowledge her role, that she's done a tremendous job. Because even where some powerful states have gone after her with visa restrictions and sanctions, asset freezes and all of that, and the threats to her person, she still went ahead. As an African coming from a small African country, Gambia, she never had a political clout from her home country to be able to do some of the things that she's done. And so we need to credit her. There are people who have talked about collapse cases. If you look at Kenya, if you look at Cote d'Ivoire and all of them. But I think that she could not have been the answer to every single political or legal problem that confronts the court. And to the best of her ability, to the best of her experience and knowledge, if you ask me, I think she's done a tremendous job.
All right. You talked about nationality, and one would have thought that having a black woman from Africa, she might have been able to help manage the perception that the ICC is anti-Africa and goes only for Africans. Might that be a hurdle that Khan has to now overcome, given that he's not from our continent?
Yes, Khan may not be an African, but Khan seems to be quite familiar with the African terrain. Khan has been in Libya defending Gaddafi's son. Khan has been in Kenya defending Deputy President Ruto in Kenya. And so he's quite familiar with the African narrative and the sentiment of the African people. And when you look at the composition of the state parties, you have 33 coming from Africa. That's the largest regional grouping. And so what it means is that somehow Khan had significant support from the African community for him to be able to make the 72 votes that he got. And so it tells us that you may not be an African by nationality or by a political choice, if you like, but your orientation could be African-centered and African-oriented. And that is why we indicated that the moves that he would be making immediately he takes office would be a guiding framework with which we can judge him, or we can begin to question his good credentials that he comes into office with. So at this point, I think that Africa got a good number of years from 2012 till now. That's about 9 years. And so having gotten 9 years of managing the ICC at the level of investigation and prosecution, I think it's time to give way to another country or another personality to get involved. And we should not be too concerned and worried, especially when very serious decisions have been taken by Madame Fatou Bensouda, who lives in June, but those decisions would outlive her tenure of office. And so a certain policy direction has been crafted and given to the ICC. It would be difficult to see Khan completely departing from these policy decisions that have been made.
All right, so let's talk about Palestine now, because the International Criminal Court ruled that it does have jurisdiction over crimes committed in the Palestinian territory. We've got Joe Biden as president now, but the United States is a notoriously good friend to Israel. And with the issue of American forces being put under the microscope by Bensouda, will Joe Biden have a different attitude, do you think, when it comes to dealing with Palestine and Israel and the occupied territories and some of the crimes that may have taken place there? And this is on both sides, for the record, but also dealing with the issue of American troops, what they may have gotten up to in time.
Yeah, Peter, thank you. You know, we have to take note of two things. One, you have a situation where there is a massive or an extensive degree of control, bureaucratic control, or organizational control over U.S. foreign policy in some specific cases. And so the U.S. policy towards Israel in relation to Palestine will not substantially or significantly be altered because of Joe Biden. If you observe, The US State Department at the moment is trying to review sanctions on the ICC top officials. One would have expected with the election of Joe Biden, this would be one of the executive decisions that he would take to reverse those sanctions. But the point is that you will still have to go through the bureaucratic process of reviewing these decisions that have been taken. And so having made the point that a certain degree of control resides with the bureaucracy, it's important to recognize that it's not very likely that Biden would give a leeway or to give out Israel on a silver platter for ICC trials, because, mind you, there is a bipartisan support in the US with regards to how the ICC continued to serve as a threat to American interests and American national security interests abroad. And so I cannot immediately foresee Biden being a different option from all the other US presidents we have seen who have taken opposition to the activities of the ICC.
All right, we're running out of time, but if you can maybe just comment. The Christian-dominated militia, this case that's before the ICC now, your thoughts on that one and how it can be dealt with, because we see this kind of religious and ethnic killings on the continent, sadly, all too often. Might this serve as an example or to assist the continent in dealing with some of these things, that it's been brought to the International Criminal Court?
I noticed that this was a referral. This was a situation where Central African Republic authorities kind of handed over the suspects to the ICC, and it's been a period of 9 years from 2012 till now. And in the last elections, when we're talking about 2019, we also saw some kinds of violent activities that were carried by both sides. Now, in this complicated matter, sometimes it's extremely difficult when you have one side being handed over to an international criminal court. The question would be that, is it a case that we do not have crimes committed on the other side? Is it a case that we are still going to perpetuate the idea of the victor's justice? And so it's important that we recognize the role of the ICC. One of the things I'm expecting Khan to do in his tenure, the ICC is not the first point of call. The ICC must be regarded as playing a complementary role to national legal systems in addressing some of these systemic challenges of ethnicity, religious diversity, or religious differences. And so, whilst I subscribe to the fact that those who have committed atrocities, international crimes, must be punished and they must be prosecuted by the ICC, I am also minded that in the spirit of national peace, cohesion, and national stability, it is important to begin to look for local mechanisms that can sustain African countries as far as peace and stability is concerned.
All right, final question. Does the ICC have a future in your view? We saw South Africa at one point almost leading a charge to exit the ICC, and you've just said that Africans contribute significantly to its state parties. Is there still an appetite, do you think, for African countries to want to withdraw their state partnership and perhaps move away from this international organization?
Well, the reality is that there is some decline in the charge that was led by South Africa. We've seen a significant decline in that whole campaign that South Africa waged, especially when the Kenyan cases were ongoing until it collapsed. Then, in addition, the Ivorian issue also came up. If we are looking at the future of the ICC, we must go back to look at even how Khan was elected. We've had a situation where civil society organizations within the field of international criminal law had cause to complain about the process of electing the ICC prosecutor and demanding for a fair process, a minimal international politics taking center stage in the whole judicial process. So to the extent that for the first time we do not have a situation of a consensual candidate, a candidate emerging out of consensus, it should tell you that obviously there is something there that is affecting the future of the ICC. ultimately, if you look at the top 3 or 4 candidates, they were all emerging from European countries. So again, if you ask me regionally, there is a huge appetite as far as European countries are concerned. But that is somehow declining if you look at the African region, and then also the behavior of the US over the period. And so now, even before this whole South African campaign, we have a situation where African countries are demanding to use other justice mechanisms. And so an amendment where we can have African Court of Justice and Human Rights, such that that court will have jurisdiction over international crimes and would be able to try persons that are not able to submit themselves to justice at their national legal systems. And so I think that going forward, when legal systems are well developed on the continent, there is likelihood that the appetite for the ICC would be on the low, as we are seeing already happening.